Starting with facts and logic here. All right, so that's my voice. That's my just voice making fun of him. So let's go, Mr. Wop himself, Ben Shapiro.
As I say, there are three reasons why impeachment is being pursued. One is that some people think that Trump actually committed a formal crime. I think
He did. Well, he didn't commit the crime because he wasn't smart enough to pull it off. It's more of a what you call it? What do you call it when you plan to murder somebody? Conspiracy. It was conspiracy, and that even though he didn't pull it off, fucking I hate Watch Mojo. Even though I need to unsubscribe for them. Even though he didn't pull it off, it's still a conspiracy to actually commit election fraud. And in Georgia, in Georgia, uh, you know, and I don't know why he wanted Georgia because even if he gets Georgia like 16 points, the fucker still lost. I mean, Biden would have like 290. So it's kind of stupid. It's really dumb. Like I don't understand why he wanted Georgia's electoral points. It's like learning that somebody beat you and you were like he beat you in a race and he was about 10 miles ahead of you and you're like, "No, he was only 9.1 miles ahead of me." Like I don't understand why he I guess he did other calls and shit like that. It's not even 30 seconds in the video, and I already spent 2 minutes talking about this. But it's so illogical. I guess he did other calls, like maybe did some calls to like Pennsylvania and shit like that. Maybe he did other calls, but the other people know how to keep their mouth shut, and it's just that this random guy like leaked it. Or maybe he didn't directly like call other people. He got some of his lackeys, so he has some distance between them to actually do it. Maybe that. But I don't know why he's so obsessed with Georgia.
that's a very difficult standard to uphold. Very few lawyers would say that it counts as legal incitement, what Trump did the other day. Number two is the overall challenge to the legislative branch. I think there is some legitimacy to the idea that Trump challenged the authority of the legislative branch, who's sending people to march on the Capitol building. I also think that.
Well, he didn't necessarily sit them, but he riled them up to the point where they actually would break into the whole building and start tearing up shit. So, but by no means am I defending Trump, but at least he actually like gives this point away, which I was surprised.
There's been a long time move by a variety of presidents. This is just a much more extreme version.
Oh, this is why he's gonna bullshit. And it was a variety of moves to just sit opponents down to the White House after you lost. Like Nixon in the 1960s was like after he lost to JFK and some slim ass margins. Like JFK got like 49.75 and Nixon got like 49.25. Don't quote me. That's just some estimates. But I didn't see like Nixon, and Nixon is a corrupt motherfucker. Like he would have been impeached if he didn't resign, which is something that Trump did, but he resigned like 2 months after he lost the election. He started like doing all this bullshit, which fired up his base, and then they broke into the fucking Capitol. But let's see what this snake has to say.
Of it. I mean, FDR suggested that he was going to pack the Supreme Court because he didn't like the outcome of the Supreme Court. If his supporters had then gone and marched on the Supreme Court, it would look like something very.
Oh, if they did, but they didn't. And you know what? People knew not to go to the White House because they actually had this bonus army during Hoover, and they got shot the fuck up. Like they got shot up, ironically by Ike. Like Eisenhower. Y'all can look up the Modus Army. He actually shot up a bunch of people, and I think Patton was there too. But he's like, oh, uh, FDR, if he did, and his people, if FDR and his people actually did that, he would be expelled too, because a lot of Southern Democrats and the Republican surely hated the fuck out of him.
Similar. So once you separate out the incitement issue and you get into the challenge to the legislative branch.
But FDR didn't. Like, he didn't incite people. He could have by his little radio station, but he didn't. He did not. So we're just gonna play alternative history, where if FDR did that, then he would be expelled. What do you call it? Impeached, and then World War II would happen differently, and then the country would lose, and then there wouldn't be America. It would just be Germerica, or stuff like that. So I don't know why he's going through this alternative history shit.
Then that looks bad and ugly. I'm not sure that it looks impeachable. I understand the countervailing logic, by the way, which is the Liz Cheney logic, which is the legislative branch cannot stand for this sort of infringement on its authority. And in fact, I'm kind of happy to see if the legislative branch wants to stand up to the executive just on a broad level. My problem is I think it's partisan, but if the
all of this shit is partisan. I'm sorry, as long as you're part of the two-party monopoly system, Democrat, Republican, whatever, all this shit is partisan. Like, America talks so much trash about being against monopolies, but they have a two-party system. And it's been like that. Monopolies are as American as apple pie and fucking obesity. But he doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to talk about third-party support.
The legislative branch wants to far more often stand up to the executive branch. I think that'd be a welcome development. Finally, there's the third rationale for impeachment, and this one seems like it's the most cynical. It's also probably the most accurate because we live in a very cynical time. And
oh, okay. So it's the most cynical, but it's probably the most accurate. Like, what's that? It's like saying something. It's the most wrong, but it's the most correct because we live in a time of wrong. Like, that's it. We live in a time of wrong. I mean, I just hate that logic he just spit out.
It's just pure politics. That this is not really about principle so much as it is about the pure politics of the situation. The way that you can tell.
It's all pure politics. I mean, you realize they're politicians, right? Like, do people go into restaurants and just say, man, all this cooking is just pure culinary. Like, come on, man. I mean, all of this shit is pure politics. It was pure politics that he called in the Secretary of Georgia and actually told him to find fucking votes, which is absolutely disgusting. And the way he was elected, where he had 5 million votes in the negative, because mostly because the states that are blue are the bluest of blue states. The Democrats are the party of the cities. So, and it's very slanted. The people who vote in New York really vote blue in New York and California. And this dude Trump got in by the most slimmest margins, using bacon as a belt and pants that are 48, size 48. He got through the slimmest of margins, using bacon as a belt for pants that are size 48. That's how it is. This guy got the slimmest of margins, won the swing states by the slimmest of margins. So that's how he did it.
There's a lot of truth to this, is the way that the Democrats decided that they wanted to move forward with the impeachment. So the first thing that they did is they pushed for Mike Pence to use the 25th Amendment. Right?
Mike Pence. I don't think after all this bullshit that Mike Pence gonna actually say, yeah, guys, I was wrong. I was vice president of Satan. Like, absolutely. Like, it's like Gerald Ford actually like trashing Nixon, the guy who appointed him. Mike Pence is basically Gerald Ford, and he had to clean up the bullshit of the other administration. So if he used the amendment, why would he do this on the last week? Like, and I know a lot of people haven't read the 25th Amendment. Here's how it goes. The staff, the White House staff, uh, the a presidential cabinet, not just Mike Pence. It has to be the presidential cabinet, like the Secretary of Energy, all that shit. They have to come together, write a note that expels the president. Then the president have 3 days to react to it, and then it goes to the Congress. That's it. So by the time all the shit comes down, he's not even going to be president anyway. They'll just sworn in Joe and Kamala, and then that would be it. Like, So all this energy, it's just much cheaper to just expel him and like actually impeach him and make sure he doesn't run for any more offices. Now, he is like 80 years old. He's going to die soon. And sadly, Joe's gonna go soon too. Both of them are 80. Both of them some old fucks, but still, he's gonna go any moment now. But I don't know. He might run again for the next 4 years. So it's best to expel him right now. So we just cut the snake off.
They passed a resolution trying to push Mike Pence to use the 25th Amendment. Now, that's unconstitutional. Okay, the 25th Amendment is an executive branch.
No, it's not. If you pass a resolution, how's that unconstitutional? They could pass. They didn't pass a bill. They passed a revolution about this. So they didn't even pass a fucking bill. They just suggested to Mr. Pence to actually do it, which he's not. Is going to shoot him in the foot. Like, he's vice president to this guy. Yeah, I'm vice president to a failure. Absolute shittard. Like, have Trump be quiet for a few years. He'll be looked back with a bottom, like, a nice, decent amount. Just like Bush is. Like, we were like a decade or two away from the Bush administration, and he's looked at like decently. Like, he's not the devil anymore.
Remedy for the president being incompetent. It was originally put into law after Woodrow Wilson essentially went brain dead while he was president of the United States. And
Woodrow Wilson was always brain dead. It just was more apparent when he started sleeping a lot.
His wife, Edith, was essentially running the country. And so Congress, the states...
First woman president, by the way.
Decided, you know what, we're going to need a solution to this, and that is the cabinet can declare that the president is incompetent and then replace him with the vice president. But that is an executive branch remedy. It has to then be greenlit by the legislative branch. It's a very complicated process.
Hold on. Let me look this shit up, because I swear the 25th Amendment, that shit came right after the Prohibition and all that shit. Let me look this shit up.
Then they are going to impeach. That would be the legislative.
Hold on, I knew this was BS. The 25th Amendment was passed like in 1967, the 60s, when they actually had some guy's brain being blown out, JFK. So that's why they passed it under LBJ. So it wasn't, I don't know why he does this Wilson thing, because I know the 26th Amendment came after we had Prohibition, the women's vote. The only real amendment that really Woodrow Wilson fucked with was like the women's vote, for a myriad of reasons. And women usually voted with men's policies anyway. It wasn't until like the 60s that they started voting differently from men. So, and most people didn't even know that Woodrow Wilson was like knocked out. Just like people didn't know that FDR was in a wheelchair, a whole bunch of stuff. They usually kept that in wraps like a mummy.
Legislative branch now encroaching on the territory of the executive branch, right? So it's sort of the reverse of the argument that was being made a second ago about why Trump needs to be impeached for violating the prerogatives of the legislature. So Nancy Pelosi tried to pass a resolution suggesting use of the 25th Amendment, and Mike Pence slapped that down. He wrote a letter to Pelosi. He said he's not going to invoke the 25th Amendment.
Of course he did. He would be shooting himself in the foot if he actually didn't do that. Because he would be admitting that he took a job from an incompetent idiot.
Said, every American was shocked and saddened by the attack on our nation's capital last week. I'm grateful for the leadership you and other congressional leaders provided in reconvening Congress to complete the people's business on that very same day. It was a moment that demonstrated to the American people the unity that is still possible in Congress when it is needed most. But now, with just 8 days left in the president's term, you and the Democratic caucus are demanding that the cabinet and I invoke the 25th Amendment. I do not believe that such a course of action is in the best.
And he even admitted the cabinet. Like, it's not just a VP who can invoke it. It's the whole damn cabinet. Like, you know, it's like this. It's like, let's say the bully says you're crazy. People might shrug that off. But if the whole damn class say you're crazy, then people might take that in consideration. So it's not just a VP, guys. It's the whole damn cabinet that have to say this guy's bonkers.
Interest of our nation or consistent with our Constitution. Last week, I did not yield to pressure to exert power beyond my constitutional law authority to determine the outcome of the election. I will not now yield to efforts in the House of Representatives to play political games at a time so serious in the life of our nation.
Yeah, you have to give it to Pence. I mean, he's going to play the middle with this. He's going to talk about how he voted, which I have to give it to him. He voted to not stop the whole election, which was irrelevant anyway, because, you know, the whole fucking mob stopped the whole damn election. So, you know, Pence, after that whole mob came after him, to make sure he washed his hands of the mob, he had to vote with the Democrats and reasonable Republicans that this wasn't a fixed election. And even the Supreme Court, like 3 out of the 9 Supreme Courts were appointed by Trump, had to say this guy's bonkers and nuts.
Pence is saying, like, I can see the politics here, lady. Like, we know exactly what you're doing, which is right. As you know full well, the 25th Amendment was designed to address presidential incapacity or disability. Just a few months ago, when you introduced legislation to create a 25th...
What's the difference between discapacity and disability? Like, you know, because a disability could be like something like you're blind, and I think you can still be the president when you're blind. I mean, hell, half the presidents wear glasses. I mean, if you're in a coma, you can't be the president, so that's the discapacity. But, you know, the whole disability thing, I guess, you know, it's just how do you use the phrase. Like, you could be the president and be in a wheelchair.
The Amendment Commission, you said, quote, a president's fitness for office must be determined by science and facts. You said then, we must be
Science
very
and
respectful of not making a judgment on the basis of a comment or behavior we don't like, but based on a medical decision. Madam Speaker, you are right. Under our Constitution...
Oh, yeah, the medical decision is duck your heads because the crowd is coming to beat the shit out of you.
The 25th Amendment is not a means of punishment or usurpation. Invoking the 25th Amendment in such a manner would set a terrible precedent. After the horrific events of last week, our administration's energy is directed to ensuring an orderly transition. The Bible says, for everything there's a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to heal, a time to build up. That time is now. In the midst of a global pandemic, economic hardship for millions...
The Bible also says, do not, I'm sorry, it's in Proverbs. Do not associate yourself with an angry person because you might take on his characteristics. And I think Pence actually associated himself with a very angry person, Donald Trump. So maybe he should quote that quotation. But you know what? I'm going to stop it here. This video is already too damn long. I didn't know how long this video was going to be. Alright, peace out. Leave a like.